Hello and welcome to the Enterprise Talk Conversation Series, a peer knowledge resource by the CXOs for the CXOs. Now to our host, Kanika Goswami.
Hello, and we welcome you to our podcast On Stage with Enterprise Thought Leaders. My name is Kanika Goswami, and I'm the managing editor of Ondot Media's 6 B2B enterprise technology publications. We have engaging conversations with global thought leaders and industry experts, which reach over 1.3 million business leaders worldwide. And today we have one such security leader with us, Tony Fergusson. He's a CISO of EMEA at Zscaler. Welcome to the podcast, Tony. We're really looking forward to having a conversation with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Pleasure. So I'll just say a little bit about Tony that we know, and then I'll invite him to speak about himself as well as about his company. He has more than 25 years of experience in networking, security, and IT leadership across a variety of industries. Described as having a visionary mindset, Ferguson was one of the earliest adopters of zero trust networking principles in 2015, which is 9 years ago, quite a long time. More recently, prior to Zscaler, Tony led Man Energy's solution secure cloud transformation, including its award-winning digital transformation to zero trust network architecture. He sees innovation and out-of-the-box thinking as keys to understanding and outpacing cyber adversaries. That is a standard question we have. Will we ever outpace cyber adversaries?
Yeah, that's always the question. It's sort of a little bit like how I like to describe it is you have, we're trying to make the best mousetrap, right? And the adversary is trying to be a better mouse all the time, right? So it's it's not easy.
Is there something I've missed about you, Tony? Would you like to add something, or would you like to tell us something about Zscaler?
So yeah, let me just start off. You highlighted something a little bit about my journey into this into Zscaler, and I didn't always start on this side of the fence. I was actually a customer for 10 years and led a zero trust transformation journey. So one of the sort of pioneers, and now I'm working on this side. I'm really helping a lot of the customers along their zero trust journey. So I've been here at Zscaler coming up 4 years. And yeah, it's great to be able to talk to so many large enterprises and customers.
So my first question is a bit generic. We would like to have a little more specific answer than the question asks directly.
Yeah.
What are the biggest threats to data today, in your opinion? And what are the insights on the risk from phishing and quishing in the coming months? How has this widespread adoption of artificial intelligence made phishing attacks deadlier? So these are essentially two questions: what are the biggest attacks on data, and what is artificial intelligence role in the increase of phishing and phishing attacks?
Yeah. So I think if you talk to any security person and you talk about phishing, they will argue, yeah, we've been against this for a long time. It's nothing new. We all get emails, phishing emails that, try to make you click on that link, download that piece of malware. So that's always been there. And I suppose the evolution is, we've gone from phishing attacks to what they call Vishing, which is about voice, right? So imitating voice. And that's where AI and ML is playing a big part. And it's not just those sorts of attacks, right? We also know there's smishing, right? That's where you get an SMS. So there's different vectors. And we've even seen now, the take up of what they now call Quishing, which is about sending you a QR code. So the adversaries will send you an email. It'll have a QR code in the email, and they'll know many security technologies won't detect that QR code as a malicious link. And what do? As a user, you take your iPhone, you click on the QR code, and you go to that phishing site. So I think that's where we are with the phishing. I think one of the things that AI's really driving here is not just around phishing, right? I think what AI is driving also and especially if you look at the US at the moment, is misinformation and disinformation. So think about the number of campaigns we're going to see that is actually leveraging AI to either imitate a video or voice or these types of things. So it's going to be really difficult to you'll need to, use other tools to make sure that you can check the source and make sure that that's actually the truth. So I think that's going to be a bit of a problem in the future.
Do you see the increased use of artificial intelligence actually driving deadlier attacks? Do you see that trend happening over the next couple of months or years?
Yeah, so the thing that we probably need to bring people's focus to is that phishing attack, it may not seem so bad that they're trying to maybe steal some information like your credentials. The problem is that often leads to ransomware. Yeah, and everyone out there's no one that doesn't know about ransomware and hasn't heard about it in the news. But so there's a lot of focus and media coverage on ransomware. But there's a part of the adversaries and the organization, the actors, that what we call initial access brokers. They're the ones that will do the phishing attack, that will get the initial access into these large corporations. And that access is then sold to these ransomware actors. So I think we need to start looking at, how we can protect ourselves better against those sorts of attacks. And just remember that it is a process. They gain access, they move laterally, and then they'll steal your data. Yeah, and I think that's really something we need to be better at.
Be better prepared for in the coming year. And
Yes,
what do you
hopefully.
think are the best strategies and technologies and tools that businesses can implement to keep their organization's data secure? There's
Yeah.
not going to be a whole lot of them, but what do you think should be the priority for the coming year with the kind of threats that you are expecting?
So of course, I'm a big believer in zero trust and the fundamental concept. So I think that in itself will help protect companies' data, because at the end of the day, it is about attack surface of enterprises. It is about how once you're compromised, the threat actors are moving to your data, across into your data center, or either into your cloud applications. And that's how they're stealing data. Your attack surface is also on your cloud, right? We know how widely cloud is used. That's also an attack surface for many corporations, misconfigurations and those things. So I think zero trust is a concept you can leverage to protect your data. Yeah. So I think that's something we can all be better at, reducing attack surface, ensuring that those adversaries, assume breach once a user's breach, that they can't move laterally and steal the data. Because we've seen now that ransomware gangs aren't really even interested in encrypting your data now. They are just coming in and taking it, yeah? And they're holding that information to ransom, yeah?
So, zero trust is a concept you're saying. What tools would you recommend? Which kind of technology tools would you think businesses should adopt to stay even marginally more secure?
Yeah. So, it's always been a really difficult part for many industries to work out what data to protect. How am I even going to protect all this data? How am I going to classify the data? What data is actually important to my business? All these sorts of things are really difficult, and I think we spent a lot of time trying to do things like data loss protection, DLP, and haven't been that successful, actually, to be fair. We have not been very successful in actually putting the right controls in place. So actually, I think that, now if we look at where we are, AI and ML will actually help us in this sense. On one side, it'll help us classify data, because that's a major problem. How do I start to classify the amount of data that is going out of my enterprise towards the internet? And once we can start to classify the data, then I think we will be able to move towards then making smart, good policies that is helping the business, not protecting them from what they need to do, but doing it in a way that protects either your intellectual property or the crown jewels that you're trying to protect. So I think there's some great technology out there. Browser isolation is also another technology that I hear a lot, and I think this will drive also protecting data for corporations. But it's really about having the controls in place. And it's not just about having controls in place between users and your data, because that's in line, but it's also about having controls in place for my workloads, the cloud, my SaaS applications, infrastructure as a service, right? We know that it only takes one misconfiguration on for example, an AWS S3 bucket, and there's a data breach. So all those things need to be considered. So I think it's a bit of two parts. You need data protection in line. You need to be able to have visibility into the data. So you need to inspect. And the other part is you need to have out-of-band services where you can actually check configuration and make sure that if something happens, if an admin does make a mistake, or even preventing that mistake from happening in the first place, we need to do better at this.
Correct. So we will come back to artificial intelligence. All the conversations seem to lead to artificial intelligence at this point in time. What is the role of artificial intelligence in this endeavor in keeping organizations safe from cyber attacks? It does play a dual role. We know at one point in time it is the technology which pushes more deadlier, much worse attacks than ever before. But it is also the technology which helps cybersecurity experts to keep their companies safe, right?
Yeah.
In your opinion, what should be the best application to keep of artificial intelligence that will help keep data secure for companies?
Yeah. So one really interesting area is because you're right, there's two sides to it. Of course, we know the adversaries will use AI to make better phishing emails. They will make them more realistic. They will use it to mimic my voice, for example. Yeah. So we know that there's all these sides of it. The good news is, of course, we can, on the security side, use some of these techniques and use some of the AI to make our products even better. And I'll give you a little one use case that I think is pretty interesting. So think about deception. Yeah. So deception is a fantastic technology that is really playing a chess game with the adversary. So making sure that we're not sitting still, that we're actually engaging the adversary, and we're actually putting things in front of them, putting something they can trip over. And one of the big difficulties in this area is that actually to create fake usernames and passwords and other things that we want to leverage and put on the endpoint, that's really hard. Really hard to do from a machine because the adversaries know that that's a machine username or password. So AI will bring a lot of value in actually creating things that do look real, creating environments that look real. So I think that whole area will actually put a lot of things in front of the adversary that when they step into your world, is everything, my whole attack surface, is the whole lot real? When I start going over here and trying to attack certain applications and use usernames and passwords that are not real, then we can detect. Then we can actually be in front, right? Then we can actually say, actually, this system's compromised. Let's automate something and close access to that user.
Right. And my last question is on the Data Protection Day of 2024, which is Sunday, the coming Sunday. What is your message as a cybersecurity expert to companies looking to have higher levels of cybersecurity in the coming year? What can they do better than what they did in 2023? I know whatever you've told us till now will be summed up here, but if there is something that we probably could not cover in the earlier questions, what do you think companies should do better?
Yeah. So of course, I talked a little bit about zero trust, and I think we will see more companies adopting this concept. But if we think about data and we think about what zero trust is about, it's actually about least privilege. So you only want to give the amount of access to applications and other things that you need to run the business. So if we push that around and we look at data, we should also be thinking about data as, does everyone need access to the sensitive data? Who needs access? Do I need read access or do I need write access? So all those sorts of things, and doing it in a concept where you're saying, we will allow these departments to this data, these departments can't access it. So I think we can bring some of those concepts of zero trust to data. So I think that's an important piece to think about, and think about how we can leverage that concept within data. But I also think that if we think of us as the human aspect, so think of when I get a call and it's the CEO and they're asking you to do something, then that seems a bit odd. Should I verify? One of the founding principles of zero trust is never trust, always verify. Yeah. So even when I read, maybe I'm on LinkedIn or Facebook and I read something and I'm like, is that actually correct? Maybe I should find another source. Verify through another source. So if the CEO calls me and says, hey, can you transfer all this money to my bank account, then maybe I want to send a Teams message, or maybe I want to send an email. Maybe I want to even call them back. Maybe I want to just try to use a more secure means of communicating to that person, and just make sure you don't say that actually I trust, we now know you can't trust every email that's coming in, but can we trust every phone call? Can we trust every message I get on WhatsApp? You need to think a little bit about, is that really the person that's sending me the message? Or why are they asking me, which they often do, to go through WhatsApp? That's not something that is an official communication platform from enterprise. So I think zero trust is the founding principles, not just for corporates, for your enterprise, but you can move it towards data, but even move it towards more of the human aspect.
There is one more extracurricular question for you that I had.
Yeah.
We usually talk about keeping teams aware and well trained for security things. The kind of incidents which you just spoke about, if you were to call any of your team members and ask for X amount of money to be transferred or something to be done, they would probably do it. Why refuse the boss? The same thing that you were talking about. What is the role of keeping teams aware and engaged with the security? How should I put this? Um, Aspirations of a company. Do you think it's enough? Because it's been talked about a lot, and a lot of training sessions are constantly taking place in all companies during the data security week, the data security month. Nothing seems to become, nothing seems to be helping too much.
No. So look, user awareness and training within corporations. We see many companies that are doing phishing campaigns, simulated ones, right? They do them internally because they want to test. They want to test and educate their users. And look, I think these campaigns are great and they do drive value. The problem is it only takes one. And if you're a large enterprise, it's really hard, right? So I think there's a limit on that area, on the human aspect, and especially if we start to now add the problem with these emails are going to look even better, right? They're going to be more well-written. They're going to be, even in a different language, they're going to be, you're not going to be able to spot those areas you used to be able to spot. So I think user education goes part of the way, yeah? And I think we should continue doing that. Where I think we could be a lot better is I think we could be a lot better on the actual controls we put in place. Look, we have a lot of good technology out there, yeah? And when I start to talk to companies, one of the things you need to be looking at is not sort of looking at doing threat hunting, but actually looking for risk, yeah? Risk hunting, yeah? How am I at risk as a corporation? Is my data at risk, yeah? I had a very interesting discussion with a insurance company, and I asked the CISO, what's the most important to you? What's most important? He said, data. And it often is. I hear this again and again from CISOs saying data is the most important. So I asked, okay, What data? He replied, all the policies, all the insurance policies has customer information. That is our most important data. Okay. What surprised me after that was you also said that, well, the threat actors he was most concerned about were ransomware. And I asked him why, and he said, well, actually, what's happening is the ransomware gangs are now trying to steal the data from insurance companies. So they take all the policies, then they know which companies are insured, then they target those companies. And when they say, oh, but I don't have the money, they go, oh, yes, you do. You have a policy here, and here's the amount. Put the claim in. So it just shows you really how important data is, and understanding what data is important, and understanding who you're up against. Who wants your data? What is the risk? And start to implement controls in place that controls that data, that reduces the attack surface, that reduces the lateral movement. So I think we can do a lot on both parts, the human part and the technology part. I think it's all about knowing where you have risk and trying to concentrate on how do I put controls in place to mitigate it.
Thanks so much for that, Tony. Interesting, insightful, well-rounded discussion, if I may say so. Of course, there are always a lot of parts left out because cybersecurity is not a subject you can discuss in one sitting. And
Yeah.
it is not a subject even CISOs can master in one sitting. So this is just one of the conversations that we had. I hope we can have some more conversations with you on this. And with that, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me. Thank you.
Great having you here.
Thank you so much for being with us. Please do follow us on social media for regular updates and new content.